Freeman, and it's incomplete. Or did he make the catch at the 15?
Yeah.
What are they going to rule it? He caught it? Touchdown! He did what?
The end zone. It is caught for the win. Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown. Total disbelief at Ford Field.
Rushes on, has time. Looking, throws, middle, got us there. Breaking free to the 50. He may go all the way to the 20 down the right side. And there's Randall Cobb to the 5, to the end zone, to the touchdown. Oh my goodness.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Green and Golden Boys Packers podcast for Packer fans living inside enemy territory. I'm Charles, and with me today is actually nobody. Marcus is on vacation today, so I will be doing a reaction episode by myself, where the Packers took down the Philadelphia Eagles 30-16. And I think the question on everyone's mind leaving that game is, why did Tony Romo have such a hard time saying Jair Alexander's name? I think I heard Jar, Jair. I think he called him Alex once. Maybe I'm being too critical, but I feel like being one of the top shutdown corners in the league, Tony Romo should be able to be able to pronounce his name. But I know everyone is tuning into this podcast not for my commentary on the commentators, but to hear the opinion of the Green and Golden Boy. And all I have to say is thank God they did not put in Jalen Hurts in sooner, because frankly, that looked like a completely different team when Jalen Hurts came in for the struggling Carson Wentz. I think a lot of us Packer fans probably had the same mentality that Tony Romo and company had in the booth, where, by the mid-third quarter, we thought this game was kind of in hand. Now, the score was never really a blowout. It just felt like the Packers had the game in control the first 2.5 quarters. Now, that all changed when Jalen Hurts came in. It seemed like perhaps we were getting off the field, 4th and 10. They converted on, but then there was offensive pass interference. And then, of course, we all know what happened with Jalen Hurts throwing his first touchdown pass of the year. Now, I was getting all ready for this podcast, kind of the last minutes of the game, seeing as it was kind of in control. This just added, another talking point, and I was all ready to say, this is classic, Green Bay, defense late in games when it seems like we have control. They just inevitably seem to give up these points. And before I get to all of the amazing things that we did this game and all the positive things, and, there's a lot more positive to talk than negative, I just was ready to say, it just feels like we still let these garbage time touchdowns happen. And, maybe it's not a big deal, right? The Bears got a couple touchdowns late in the game where we were up 41-10. I think we ended up winning 41-25. So yeah, who really cares if on paper it seems closer? So I guess, again, when I saw that touchdown on 4th and forever, I was just annoyed more than anything, and I didn't think much of it. And then, of course, Green Bay trots onto the field, and I said, okay, a couple first downs later, and this game is over. But, of course, we went 3 and out. We had a mediocre punt by J.K. Scott, and then, of course, another, I think, our second touchdown given up by our special teams with a fantastic, even though he dropped the ball, something called Jalen Reagor got a punt return for a touchdown. But like I said, at first I was just annoyed about giving up that 4th and long touchdown. Now all of a sudden it actually really mattered, right? Now all of a sudden this very mediocre team that hasn't been in this game at all literally had to bench their multi-million-dollar quarterback in the middle of the third quarter is now, it's a 1-possession game, and they just stopped us, twice, 2, 3 and out. So obviously, we all watched the game. We know what happened. The Packers got the ball back, and Aaron Jones had the 77-yard run, I think, for a touchdown, and there was very much your dagger, which basically sealed the game up. But I just, again, want to bring this back to like the broader point where, we've had this kind of good defense, maybe average defense. Last week could say, oh, well, we gave up those touchdowns because we didn't want to let the big play happen quick, right? We want to keep everything in front of us. Of course, a team can move the ball down the field, eventually scoring. Who cares? We won 41-25. But if that's your argument, then how can you explain us being in this prevent defense and still giving up a touchdown? It just, to me, seems simply inexcusable to have it be fourth and forever on the 25-yard line, and they give up a big play and a big touchdown. And it was unfortunately Jair Alexander who, until that point, had a fantastic game going. Again, not scolding anyone, not down on anyone. It's something to watch because it just seems like the Packers once again just didn't finish a game, as strongly as us Packer fans really would like, and I'm sure as they would like. All of a sudden, I got at the edge of my seat there the last couple minutes of that game because, if we don't, if Aaron Jones doesn't rip off a 77-yard run, it could very well be a very close game. Okay, enough of Mr. Negative, because that wasn't what I was preparing to talk about as my one negative of the game, right? As the game was ending up and I was trying to get ideas for this episode, I was kind of starting to circle in, in the preview episode. I know me and Marcus talked about we needed sacks, which we got a lot of, 4 in the first half to be exact. And we needed turnovers. So I was getting ready to say, it's great that we won. It's great that we, got the sacks, but, Carson Wentz has thrown the most interceptions, than any other quarterback in the NFL, I believe. Maybe second worst. There might be one more guy out there, but there should have been a game where we had some turnovers in, and right on cue, Darnell Savage made a Devontae Adams-like catch, and the ball was deflected, and it was a bad pass or whatever. Yeah, I get that. But a diving catch to make that interception late in the game to truly seal the game up was just fantastic to see. So it was great to see that the Packers did end up getting their turnover. I would have liked to see more, when the game was, still somewhat close. But hey, I think overall the scoreboard made the game look a little bit closer than it actually was. And a lot of that had to do with the first quarter because the Eagles did exactly what they needed to do all game. They ran the ball, they had nice, easy passes for Carson Wentz to complete. They worked the ball down the field very consistently. Took a lot of time off the clock. They had to settle for a field goal, but then they ended up getting a 3-and-out against the Packers right away. And as soon as that first fumble, and then the first 2 plays for the Packers was a fumble and then a sack. And I thought to myself, oh, God, here we go, right? I mean, the Packers can't stop the run. All of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers isn't being Aaron Rodgers. And, obviously after, the first possession, I'm like, this is going to be a really long night. And then second possession, Carson Wentz and company looked like a very capable offense. They were running the ball well. They were doing that jet sweep type thing, and they were beating Zadarius and Preston Smith off the edge. And, my blood was kind of starting to boil a little bit, saying, oh my God, seriously, we're going to let the Eagles walk in here and run down our throats again, much like they did last year. But then the defense did step up, and I think that was the biggest plus of the game. There were a lot of big moments that the defense had. Of course, the 4 sacks in the first half is very noteworthy. But I think that first sack that they got, where they not only sacked Carson, but pushed them out of field goal range. They essentially had an opportunity to go up 6-0 early in the game, right there in the first quarter, and by sacking them and forcing the Eagles to punt was, I think basically what flipped the script for the rest of the game. Of course, we all know what happened offensively. Aaron Rodgers went 25 for 34. He had 295 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns. Felt like he probably could have even had more. Aaron Jones, 15 carries, 130 yards. Jamal Williams, even 5 carries for 26 yards. Just all around from that point forward, we had a fantastic game. Specifically that first half. I mean, Tony Romo kept talking about it. I think he went, 14 of 15 or 13 of 14 of his receptions in the first half. So Aaron Rodgers was definitely Aaron Rodgers. He definitely looked MVP quality, and it was just exactly what we needed from, a big-time quarterback in a game that, yes, admittedly, we should have won. We should have won handedly. But it was a game that both Marcus and I were a little concerned about just because of the matchups, right? Their defense is their strong suit. If you get Aaron Rodgers, he's get his jersey dirty early, it potentially could have been a long night. Now, it was on our first touchdown drive where I thought to myself, oh, shit, I might have jinxed us in the preview episode. I laid out how well the Eagles did on fourth and short, specifically in the red zone against the Seahawks last game. The first two possessions that the Seahawks had, they tried to go for it on fourth down, and they stopped Seattle from scoring. In turn, obviously, the Seattle didn't get points. They weren't on the board. The Eagles performed a lot last week. They did like they did this week. So late into the second quarter, it was a 0-0 game last week. So I posed the question to Marcus. Marcus, what do we do given what we just saw? The Eagles, are one of the better defenses apparently in the NFL, and they have a record of doing pretty well on fourth down. They have a kind of shaky percentage on third, but nonetheless, fourth and one, fourth and goal on the one. What do we do? Do we go for it? I personally kind of felt like, hey, no, they kind of proved themselves last week against a pretty good offense in Seattle's that they could stop, good offenses. So I thought to myself, we should settle for the field goal. Marcus took the other approach, saying, no, we're hot. Devontae, is kind of the go-to guy in those situations. Aaron Jones can pick up a yard when need be. And then obviously Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. And he suggested if we were to find ourselves in that position that we should indeed go for it and go for the points. Well, it didn't take long for us to see what LaFleur would do and which of us, between me and Marcus, would ultimately be correct in our thinking. And thankfully, Marcus was correct because we did go for it on that fourth down, and Devontae had a hell of a catch for that first touchdown. So that was a big sigh of relief. Again, we talked a little bit the other week about me accidentally jinxing this team too many times. And I was just glad to get that one off my back early. Now I'm already 16 minutes into this episode, and I haven't even mentioned the fact that Aaron Rodgers just threw his 400th career touchdown pass. I didn't realize this going into the game, but But Aaron Rodgers is the fastest quarterback to reach that 400 yard marker than any other quarterback. It was very cool to see Davante Adams catch that pass. It was very cool to hear that Davante Adams also caught his 200th touchdown pass several years ago. So all around, you can't say anything about how Aaron Rodgers played. His percentages should have been even higher with a few key drops that we saw kind of later in the game. And again, there's like nothing negative to say about this game, but you have to be, you gotta be a little negative, I suppose. It was frustrating to see MVS be the one to drop, I think 2 passes. The long bomb right there in the second half when we were pinned back towards our goal line. Adam Lazard did drop or wasn't able to squeeze one in kind of later in the half. Devontae Adams even dropped that potential touchdown pass. That would have been a tough catch, but there were some, letdowns on the receiver end. Lazard and Devontae, I'm going to set those aside because those happen, right? They happen every game. MVS is just like, Now, I wish Marcus was here to talk me off the ledge on this one, but again, it was plays that should have been made and easy enough catches. I mean, that 50, yard bomb was squeezed in his arm, no hands from the defender getting in there, and then he just kind of, let that ball dribble out. And those are just, again, it's just a theme that we've seen all year. I'm happy that I'm not as upset about it, obviously, because we won. But when MVS was like battling to be our number 2 guy, those drops are unacceptable. But when we see Devontae obviously being our number 1, and then Adam Lazard stepping up, being probably our true number 2 now, our tight ends, Mercedes Lewis and Tanyan,